Yeah, so hi, I'm Steve. I'm a visitor experience volunteer.
Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons. I work 3 days a week with a multinational company, and it's fairly intense. And I really like the idea that for at least some other days in the week, I can do something completely different from that. And this is that. Um, so why the National Justice Museum and not another museum? So again, a couple of reasons for that. I've always been really interested in history, and for a long time, and I'm also interested in criminality and true crime. And so, this museum brings together the historical aspects and the true crime. You almost, in a way, you can't understand why certain things were a crime unless you understand the history. There's a really good example, actually, that I was going to mention on this one in the museum, and that is if you think about Georgian Britain, and the Bloody Code, where there were more than 200 offences that were considered capital crimes in those days. And some of them are really quite what we would consider pretty trivial today. So things like killing a sheep or poaching a fish. And for that you could be sentenced to death, essentially. But in reality, what normally happened is once judges sort of realised that this was probably a little bit harsh, it's probably a bit counterproductive. In fact, they would sort of change the sentence to transportation somewhere away from Britain, basically. And we've got a really nice part of the exhibition which covers that whole transportation part of that period of history. So I started volunteering in October 24, so it's about 5 months ago. Yeah, so as a visitor experience volunteer, I have two main roles. One of them is to make sure the exhibition looks as good for everybody when they come in, whatever time of the day they come in. And so that's there's an element of that, of keeping the place tidy, making sure that the various resources in some of the exhibitions are stocked up, that sort of thing. But the other part of the job is just helping out visitors, making sure they can find their way around the museum. We have these costume interpretations which bring the kind of the history to life. And sometimes visitors aren't aware of those, that they're taking place, so it's good to sort of direct them towards the criminal court we have. And when visitors arrive, they get a number on their wristband. And again, sometimes visitors aren't aware of what the significance of that is. But as you go through the museum, there are various exhibitions where that number's mentioned. And so it's good to sort of remind visitors of that. I think the favourite thing I have is actually just about coming into the museum and meeting people. I like to give back to the community anyway, and that's great. But also I think just sort of working with the team here, even as an occasional visitor to the museum, as a sort of probably bi-weekly volunteer, I still feel part of the team, which is really nice. And I also think that the support I get as a volunteer has been fantastic with Megan and Eliza's help. Yeah, so for me, it's the capital punishment part of the museum. I'm always drawn to that. I think it's a really interesting combination between the historical and local historical aspects and then the criminal justice aspects. It brings them both together really nicely. And the other thing that it does, I think it leads the visitors to answer the question, what do you think about capital punishment? And we invite visitors to actually write their answer on a bit of paper and put it to a magnetic board. And I think that's really interesting, and it's good to sort of see what answers come back from that. So we have a local family called the Pierpoint family, who are really linked very, very closely to the capital punishment in this country, and there was a line of Pierpoints that were executioners. That was their official job. So I think that's a really nice local history link. I'm planning to come to some. I hear of the murder mystery events, and I also read recently that there is a sort of a late evening session in the museum, a sort of a ghost session, which I'd be really interested to come to. But I have been invited along to some of the staff events, which have been fun. So the Christmas party, for example, which was nice as a volunteer to be invited to that. I think the only other thing I would say, another bit of the museum I really enjoy, and that is the costume interpretation. I think the way we have actors and actresses bringing to life some of the criminal cases is really good. It helps to sort of get the visitors to understand, what it could have been like. And I think in our criminal courtroom, you get a real sense of how the cards were stacked against actually the accused.